Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of the Calm Mind Podcast. My name is Birdkeepertoby, and joining me is Mr. 7 himself, True Green 7. Ron, how are you doing today, mate?
You know, I never put the connection between my channel name and, let's say, 007. I don't know why I've never made that joke. I've never been like, 7, True Green 7. Why haven't I ever done that? That would have been good.
Is the 7 in your name one of those, like, you're young, you make a username, 7's the favorite number kind of situations?
Literally that.
Yep.
I mean, 7 is also associated with green sometimes because of luck. But also, yeah, nowadays my favorite number is 17. And it sucks because True Green 17 rhymes. That would have been pretty cool.
Oh, True Green 17. I like that. Well, that's your advanced generation channel. That's when you need to, like, upgrade to, like, the future.
At 1 million subs, we'll do it.
I feel like that's like if you're a Marvel hero, True Green 7. True Green 17 is like from universe, 6 like it's like a universe over, and he's like just specking into slightly different stuff.
You know what's so cool? So I just watched Doctor Strange. Obviously, no spoilers for the new Doctor Strange movie.
Super cool. No spoilers.
But they mentioned that like his universe is universe 616. 616. And I've been not reading specifically the Marvel comics, but since like a child, I just read the Wikipedia pages and go to Barnes & Noble and maybe look at like the encyclopedias for all the comics. I've been doing that since I was a child. So I know a lot about like the comics, even though I don't really literally read them. And I've heard, Earth 616 a billion times, and it was just so cool finally hearing it in the MCU, just them acknowledging it. And it's probably as cool as like, oh no, that's a spoiler. Okay, well, yeah, we can't talk about that. Never mind.
There's someone in the comments is probably gonna like know this better than me, but I could have sworn that like 616, the Marvel comic main continuity, existed in parallel to the movie continuity, which was like universe 61666666666 or something ridiculous like that.
You'd assume so. Usually they are, but I guess it's. I think that's the ultimate universe, like the ultimate. I don't know. I'll look it up. Are you a fan of any like Marvel like heroes or comics that haven't showed up in the MCU yet?
I don't think so, because I was never a huge fan of Marvel characters in general. Like I like Spider-Man. I remember watching the old Spider-Man cartoons, and Spider-Man's my favorite. I absolutely adore Spider-Man. I just got a Spider-Man suit custom made as a belated birthday present, which I'm just running around the house wearing. I'm loving it. But no, like all of the characters I would know, I think are already in the MCU. What about you?
So growing up, I was a huge X-Men fan.
All right, sure.
So the X-Men are who I want to see in the MCU the most. Also, as a kid, I did consume way more like DC comic stuff, especially because their animated stuff is way better than Marvel, whether it be the shows or like their direct-to-DVD movies. Their animated content is really good. I recommend watching some DC animated movies like the Flashpoint movie or Justice League Doom. A lot of really good like actual stories that you want to see from these heroes that you never get to see because like their live action isn't as prolific. But I guess X-Men is who I want to see. And because like X-Men, I think X-Men is probably the most like universal story. Any like minority group or just any group that feels like the minority can definitely relate to the X-Men, and they came at a right time, I think.
I sort of disregarded the X-Men from the question just because when you asked, because we've obviously seen so many X-Men movies, so I was like, well, no, I've already seen them on screen, so I'm not fussed about them being in the MCU, but yeah, like Wolverine, the classic Wolverine with the yellow and the claw, like I love that stuff. I agree with you though. I think X-Men are super cool, but mostly because Magneto is a arch villain.
Magneto's my favorite villain.
So perfect. Ever. He's so perfect because him and Charles Xavier, the whole thing is like, Charles is advocating for have hope that there is goodness within people and that goodness in people will save the world. And then Magneto's just simply more of a cynic. He's like, no, goodness in people won't save the world. Bad people will always rise to power. So we need, for the good of us, we need to step above that. And like that I think the reason that works as an arch nemesis and as an eternal conflict is because it's a conflict that I don't think the human race has like decided on yet.
Exactly.
I think we're at war about that,
Those are the best kinds of stories, because there are a lot of conflicts that humans haven't decided on, and those are the ones that like have prevailing stories, timeless stories. I'm trying to think of like are there examples of like older like pieces of media that have messages that really can definitely be applied to nowadays. Like Civil War is has a timeless message where it's like between like freedom and like what are the two sides between freedom and accountability?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's like still a thing that at least people in America are definitely grappling with.
Yes.
And I love it when superheroes stuff manages to tell those stories really well.
It's a hard one because you've got the Tony Starks who are saying like, no, we got to be held accountable when we go in and save people. There is collateral to that, and so there's like that is a very valid side. But then Captain America saying no, when you become accountable to someone, you're technically under their power, which, like, if you're Captain America and you're like the virtue of the symbol of goodness and virtue, and you're probably going to do quote unquote whatever is right at any given moment, that's fine. But the moment you're like a slightly more like Deadpool shouldn't have that freedom, like there should be some accountability.
That's
somewhere,
kind of the answers. It's just not black and white. You shouldn't have to choose between the two. It should be a balance of both. And it could be like 80-20, it could be 50-50. It doesn't, that's again, that is the conflict. We don't know how much, percentage between the two. What's the good mixture? But I've always thought it was so interesting that the sides that like Iron Man and Captain America picked in Civil War were basically the opposite of what they would have picked at the beginning of their arcs.
Yes.
That's what's so interesting.
That's what's kind of perfect about the journeys of these characters, because like Captain America is the soldier. He's supposed to follow orders and be part of a system, and by being frozen in ice and seeing the regimes change and seeing like S.H.I.E.L.D. and how like actually shady everything is in the background, and now knowing that Hydra had compromised them, it's like, yeah, you can't fall in line with these regimes. But then on the flip side, Tony Stark's feeling an awful lot of guilt for all of the times that he flouted the rules and just said, I'm gonna do it my way, and people got hurt.
And then like the end of their arcs is basically them becoming the other person. So like Tony Stark becoming the ultimate hero, and like Captain America learning just to think about himself and live life, I guess.
Because he deserves it, yeah. Yeah, it actually is. It's beautiful when you put it like that. I don't think about that a lot, but you're right. It's cool. That's
why I don't like it when people dismiss the stories of Marvel, because they, you see these arcs, and these arcs are legitimate arcs, and sometimes I guess you don't enjoy the Marvel movies if you just don't realize that these arcs are happening. Maybe you didn't watch one of the movies or something like that, and it's like, it's valid. You don't have to watch. You can watch whatever you want to watch. But it is like a TV show. It is like a series, and you're gonna get the ultimate enjoyment if you just watch it in the series that you're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. My hype for Marvel has been getting more and more recently. I think post Endgame, it was kind of like, that's it. That's the Marvel movie. They did the whole thing with season finale, and then it's kind of like, what are they going to do in Phase 4? Pandemic happened, things were delayed. We had Black Widow. Sony was messing around with a couple properties, and now it's just suddenly like over the last couple months, I think between the Spider-Man back at the end of last year and then Multiverse of Madness, we've got Thor coming out actually really soon. Thor is not far off.
I'm really excited for that.
We just have Moon Knight, and I'm like, I am suddenly really excited for this again, to see where this goes next.
What's funny is that's probably the opposite for a lot of people, where they're just burnt out. A lot of people have talked about that, so it's funny. I guess like I'm excited for the potential now with all this like multiverse stuff, and just like some of the new heroes are pretty cool. So yeah, I am excited. I'm very neutral about it. I'm just like, I've literally been consuming superhero content since I was a child, so it's like I'm just gonna continue doing that.
I was watching a video on TikTok that I think you might have liked, which was talking about, so like in response to in theory, the theory is that in response to 9/11, superhero movies started becoming quite popular as a sort of, these terrible villains show up and there is a hero to stop them, and it's kind of like an antidote. And that a similar thing happened with zombie movies in relation. I can't remember to quite what it was, like apocalypse and zombie movies.
I would assume it's the stock market crash.
I guess so. I think it was.
Yeah,
and then it was like, oh, well, civilization is going to fall apart anyway. And, it's kind of an antidote to that. And people are saying, well, what's the pandemic response going to be? And people are talking about multiverse movies. People are saying that there is an allure
You're right.
There's an allure to like looking at like parallel lives and going, you know what, in the universe where we didn't have 2 years taken away from us, that actually it would have been this or that or the other, plus coupled with like the box office success of Spider-Man and people wanting to probably hone in on what made that movie successful, and now Multiverse of Madness. And like Disney has like primed us for multiverse stories. Yeah. I just think we're going to see a complete explosion over the next 5 to 10 years of multiverse content.
That's crazy because first, again, like I was always a huge fan of multiverse stuff. Like that's why I really loved What If. Even like time travel stuff I've always loved because of like the whole like, butterfly effect and just seeing different outcomes of things. There's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of time travel and butterfly effect kind of movies in my childhood, and not movies, like TV shows, even cartoons having like specials, like alternate reality specials, or like just alternate dimension specials, like Fairly Odd Parents and I mean, like honestly, did you watch Fairly Odd Parents as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Fairly Odd Parents was literally the best at specials in movies. I don't know what. Like, say what you want about Butch Hartman, but he knew how to make these specials and movies, and I don't know why. Like, what is the thing that made them excel at that specific thing over the others? I'm trying to think.
The one that like still lives in my brain rent free is the one where Crocker had the fairies. Like that's that's like the main one I'm remembering is like, oh, before Timmy Turner, I think is it Crocker, the fairies guy? Yeah, he the one who's like the kind of main antagonist. He had the fairies before Timmy, and that was like Wanda and Cosmo's secret or something like that, and that there's some time travel shenanigans and I can't remember quite what it is.
That was just like a normal episode. Like that
was it?
Yeah, like it was probably marketed as a special, but it wasn't like a special like the specials that were like multi-episode specials or like multi-episode like movies that they had.
I thought that was a multi-episode special. I must be wrong.
Well, okay, it was technically like I think that concept debuted, but then they had another episode that just followed Crocker as a child. I guess this is cloudy because there's also the whole. There's a special where Crocker just becomes the overlord of the world, and I think he has the fairies in like a scepter that he uses.
I might also be thinking of that. It's been a long time.
But I think that was combined with that lore. I think maybe in that special it was revealed that he had them as a kid. But I don't remember.
Okay.
Because it became part of the lore, so it appeared in multiple things that Crocker had them as Cosmos and Wanda as a kid. But also like the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. That was the coolest thing. Like that literally made me interested in like multimedia stuff and like seeing like 3D characters translated into 2D and 2D characters translated into 3D, and just like seeing adaptations of the same design.
You remember you remember that Simpsons episode, The Treehouse of Horror, with they do that where Homer goes behind the bookshelf and he enters 3D.
Wait, what's funny is that no, I don't, because they also have multiple things where they randomly just show 3D stuff.
Right.
So I don't know if it's that specific one or not. And I've seen like multiple like rewatched multiple shorts of Simpsons, just like them in 3D. For example, they literally had a whole episode that was 3D this season. I didn't watch it, but I saw clips. But it was well received. Like usually people are like, making 2D characters into 3D is a little cringe, but no, it was really it was animated like it was 2D. It was well done.
We used to run in to watch The Simpsons, to watch the bit where they run in and they all sit on the sofa.
Oh, the couch
at the beginning. Yeah. The couch gag, and there's a new one for every episode. And I just remember we used to call that the funny bit. Which is so weird for a show that has multiple funny bits in it. But as kids, we were like, we don't want to miss the funny bit. That's the funny bit at the beginning of every episode. And that's what we called it in the house. We were like, we got to watch that. And The Simpsons is great for like just lore and like, obviously it's a long-running show that they mess stuff up all the time. They have inconsistent stuff. There's like all sorts of inconsistent things about characters' age and how long people are like pregnant for or whatever. That's like the same in any
sitcom.
Where Springfield is, where are these buildings located, what's the layout of the houses, that stuff. Did you ever play the Simpsons hit and run game?
I watched a friend play it like multiple times. It seems so it's very nostalgic to me. Like The Simpsons in general is very like the art style and just like even though I barely watched it, as I definitely didn't watch it as a kid, you know what I'm saying? I saw it always like in the background sometimes, like I would go to a cousin and they would be watching it or something like that. And because of that, The Simpsons is always just the most nostalgic thing to me. There's a lot of like franchises that are nostalgic to me, even though I never consumed them, like Sailor Moon. I just watch clips of Sailor Moon on YouTube because I don't really care about the story. I just care about I like these characters a lot, and just seeing them doing like everyday stuff. These like girls hanging out. It's so interesting because like the art style is so beautiful and so pretty, so 90s. But what's funny is that the Fairly Odd Parents did the Channel Chasers. Remember did you see that special? That was probably the most...
Sounds familiar.
Where Timmy goes into the TV basically and like goes into like multiple different shows that are like parodies of very famous shows. Like one of them was The Simpsons. One of them was like South Park. The final one was Dragon Ball Z, where like they were fighting in this arena. And like some of them I didn't get it as a kid, but now as an adult I understand every single show that they were referencing.
Referencing thing, yeah.
It was the coolest thing. That I love seeing like the characters in different art styles. Like as a kid I would make up characters, like I would just doodle characters in school, and then I would redraw them in a different art style. Or like, let's say this was around the time where there was a lot of live action adaptations of cartoons, like Last Airbender just came out, and even though I hated it, but I followed the production of the Last Airbender film for a year. Like I was so excited to watch it. I knew more about it than anybody ever. Yeah. And then it came out and then I was disappointed. But at least I was still getting that whole like I was still excited for the idea of live action adaptations. So I was always just drawing characters and then redrawing them in like a more live action style, because I love just adaptation. I love seeing what will stay when it, like what design trait will stay when it becomes like live action. Like are they gonna like keep this like collar, or are they gonna keep this stylized button or something like that, or like how are they gonna take this stylized thing on the hair and turn it into live action?
I think we grew up at a time where the transition to live action, CG, and 3D was like happening. Like the early 2000s, it was clunky for a lot of stuff, but like Star Wars was making the big push to have everything be green screen. True. There were so many franchises that were translating from like a 2D space to like experiment with like 3D animation.
Well, like Star
and
Wars
CGI.
was the one, I think probably the ultimate, where like they had multiple different mediums. They had like 3D animated shows, 2D animated shows, live action with a lot of CGI. Like that really is a good example, actually.
By the way, telling story. I saw this on TikTok as well. Telling stories about characters who don't have superpowers, who are just like side stories that exist within the universe. Like, you know, people who are just living day-to-day life, and Thanos snap happens, and like all of that stuff. Ooh. Because when you get to the scale of a multiverse, you can't go up from there. There's really, the stakes are as high as they can possibly be, and I hope that what that means is that the next evolution and the next thing in popular media is actually small stories about people, about relationships, individuals on like a really I don't know, like low stakes level. I want that. I want those kinds of like art house movies, I guess.
Oh, art house. Okay, yeah. More like indie style Marvel films. That's why I personally really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm a huge fan of like coming of age films, and that really was that was probably the smallest scale Marvel movie.
Yeah.
But here's what's funny is that even like the larger stakes Marvel movies, or just any like action movie or sci-fi movie, the core of the story is still like the human stuff. So like for example, Doctor Strange, this new multiverse movie, the core of it was still him grappling with this regretting the crumbling of his relationship. And that's why I want to see, like, let's say X-Men and just characters that weren't done perfectly in other continuities and stuff. I want to see them in the MCU, because they always do the characters themselves at least really well. I want to see a Pokemon in the Marvel movie. How about we generate a Pokemon, Toby?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like that. Let's do it. Good transition. Good segue.
Right, generating a Pokemon. Please be popular.
Please be good for the thumbnail. Come on.
Even when it's a legendary, it's not that popular.
Oh, hang on. Can I guess? I guess? Is it a legendary that's not that popular? Are we? Is like Cobalion or like?
I wish it was Cobalion.
Really? What's worse than a Cobalion? Okay, no, go on. Let's hear it.
It's a Mesprit.
Hey, well, you know, we just had Legends Arceus. We just have Brilliant Diamond.
Yeah, that's the only reason it's going to make sense in the thumbnail.
We can come up with some relevant content, I suppose.
Mesprit, the Pokemon of emotion. Toby, have you ever been overcome with emotion?
I have been overcome with emotion.
Okay.
Do you want a time that I've been overcome with emotion?
Actually, yeah. When's the last time you really just like, yeah, you were like either very happy, very sad, or...
I feel like very sad jumps to mind easier than very happy, which is a shame. But like I feel, because I'm sure there have been points, even earlier today, actually, there was a point where I just got given this belated Spider-Man birthday present, and things seemed to be going really, really well for my housemates, and I was just kind of like overcome with an emphatic, joyous, like, oh wow, life is just good right now, you know?
Yeah.
So there was that. But it's odd, isn't it? Because I think when you go through a journey of emotions, like, I'm saying that on the same day that I've booked to see a therapist for the first time in like years.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm like, I gotta go to therapy. I got stuff I gotta
That's
deal
hilarious,
with.
I literally just had the last session with my therapist because she's going on maternity leave, so I won't be seeing her for like 3 months, and that's gonna be rough. Are
you not feeling good about that?
Yeah, because it's also literally I just started dating again.
Right.
I kind of need a therapist.
We got each other. We can bounce off each other for a bit, you know.
Good thing I just started a podcast.
Good thing you started a podcast. Welcome to Therapy Cast, where we're not going to splay out all of our most personal things. I'm quite private when it comes to the therapy side, because that's my most, that's the vulnerable, that's the vulnerable area. But I do think it's important to say, we go to therapy, and we go, I don't go all the time personally, but I have had over the last, say 6 years, 4 or 5 therapists that I've seen for like a month here, 2 months there, when times are particularly tough or when there's something on the mind that I'm like, you know what? I do have the emotional energy to address this, or I need to address this out of necessity. And I think it's important that people do that kind of self-brain maintenance. And I know a lot of our listeners, I'm going to guess, I haven't looked at our analytics actually, but I'm going to guess are guys our age. And I know there's a stigma about mental health. And we both do therapy, and big advocates over here.
I have checked the analytics. Yes, it's definitely vast majority male. Makes sense. Why would a woman want to listen to two men talk about men things?
Well, listen to us explain Pokemon.
Although I'll try my best to make sure that this is the most accessible kind of podcast.
Yeah.
But it's funny because even our what do you know the gender ratio on your channel?
Oh, it's like 87%. 87% guys, and majority is again, guys in my age range, which, I suppose, makes sense. But to all of the people who are listening or watching my videos who are not in that demographic, hi, I love that we have stuff in common. That's cool.
Yeah. My channel, I think for a Pokemon channel, has more women than usual. I guess it's still definitely majority men, but it's 75% men. At a point like 2 years ago, it was 70% men, which was cool because I thought I was going towards
breaking boundaries.
I thought I was going towards 50-50 with for example my art videos. That's definitely more accessible to both genders instead of I don't know gameplay stuff, and even though again it is a cliche and it's a stereotype to say that men like video games more, but it's still a fact based on society and pressure. It's harder for women to get into video games. So hopefully we can do something about that and just
well, we're making a specific note of, we've got a certain guest in mind that we want to come on, and we won't say who yet because I don't want to put any pressure on them or whatever. And I've spoken to her, and she's like, yes, I really want to come on your podcast and talk about how much I love Pokemon. And it's but she's just a bit busy at the moment. But there will be someone coming on hopefully in the near future who is a lovely kind of female inspiration to the world of Pokemon. When it comes to Pokemon, it's the biggest grossing media franchise, so naturally people of all corners of the world, shapes, genders, ideologies, ages love Pokemon. Everyone can love Pokemon. So then the question is, if it is dominated by a specific demographic, it might be worth looking at
it's all society driven.
Yeah, even if we are the demographic, it might be okay, is there anything more we could do, even if it's just small, and even if it's just to think about it. Like, hopefully we can actually find some ways to put action in place, but even if we're just thinking about it, what can we do to kind of make the world a little bit of a better place? And if you are someone listening to this, right, and you're listening to this on YouTube, which you can listen to this podcast, by the way, cheesy plug, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, but if you are listening to this on YouTube, you can interact with us in the comments. And if you're not in sort of our usual demographic of men our age, we'd love to hear your opinions on any ways that we could improve, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we check the comments on this channel.
We do. I love reading them. I feel weird a little bit because I'll reply to them. And sometimes. And do you reply to them?
Yeah. And people don't know who it is.
And I'm just like, oh, you're going to see that I've replied to a comment.
Yeah. It's hilarious. It's the first time I've ever experienced it, like something like that. Someone else is commenting using the same username as me. It's very surreal. Because wait, did I say that? Oh no, I guess Toby said that. Because
if it's got a typo in,
yeah, 100%. But it is very easy, other than the typo, to tell which one is which. Like Toby's the one who's saying like the more like sweet stuff and like thank you, using words like aw and like I don't use aw. Or like I'm the one, if someone's like going off on the comments, it's me. Yeah, I'm the one like being like, what are you saying? Or like I'm the one who doesn't have any chill. Like I'm like, if someone's saying something stupid, even if it's not like an insult. Let's say they're like let's say they missed something in the podcast and they commented on something that like we literally talked about in the intro. I'll be like, dude, just listen to the intro instead of like.
Do you know what I'm gonna do? Just to wind you up, is I'm gonna go into the comments as the same account as you, and I'm gonna argue with you from the same account. We can have a fight in the comment section. Oh wow!
Should we? Nah, I was gonna say like maybe we should sign our names after we comment, but like it's funner. It's more fun to see who's who. Like, more fun if you can tell if you're talking to Toby or Ron.
Yeah, for sure. Based
on the emotion that they are exhibiting in the comment.
Oh, that was smooth transitioning. So you, Ron, is there a time recently you have been overcome with emotion?
So lately I've just been more numb.
Gosh.
Like I'm just way more busy nowadays, so it's like it's just a feeling of being drained, as in instead of just sad or happy. Still have the various outlets that I do to make me happy and all that, like listening to music, watching stuff, and all that. When's the last time I cried? And last time I cry, like I cry a lot to music, and that's not because it's the music sad. That's always because the music is emotional for me, whether it be like bittersweet or happy or something like that. Last time I seriously cried, and it was like an episode of. I mean, it's an episode of Boruto. So Boruto is a very hated anime.
Okay.
It's the successor to Naruto.
Yep.
Everybody can agree that like when the canon stuff, because there's so much filler, dude. It's like it literally is 80% filler. It's more filler percentage-wise than, let's say, Pokemon, for example.
Right. Wow.
Percentage-wise, it is the anime with the most filler, at least shonen. But when it's canon, like when it's adapting to things from the manga, it's pretty good. And so there was a death in the show, and it was the death of a character that has been there since the beginning. And I cried because of the music and like the voice acting, and I cried. That, and I love it. I love crying to media, and I want more of that. So that is the last time I was the most emotional. But that was not sad. That was not happy. That was the last time I cried.
I'm literally about to well up in tears because you're making me think about scenes in media that make me cry.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that, please.
There's just the scene in Avatar. You know what I'm going to say? In The Last Airbender in season 3. Okay. How can you forgive me so easily?
Oh,
he says, and I can't even think about that scene I'm tearing right now. I can't even think about it without crying. It's such an emotional outlet.
So I watch a lot of reaction videos to the media that I consume. So for example, I've watched the entire series of Avatar multiple times through reaction videos. Like I've watched it obviously multiple times by myself, but then like at least 6 more times just watching reaction of the entire series. And so there have been times that I've cried watching the reaction videos when I haven't cried while watching that specific scene by myself, because you're also seeing the emotion of the people that are watching it. So, for example, the Azula's demise, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I was watching it. I watched multiple people react to that. They weren't crying. But then there was this group of girls that I watch, LM Reactions. They're just so empathetic. And they really empathized with like Azula at that moment, and they started bawling, and then I started crying too. Even though I never thought of that. I obviously thought of her demise as sad, but I never thought of it as like something that I could empathize with.
You could connect to, yeah. But then that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful.
But yeah, then obviously I do cry a lot. I have cried multiple times to the scene that you were referring to. I think I do tear up almost always when Aang shouts, "You muzzled Appa," and then goes into the Avatar state. That is my favorite scene, that's my favorite line and scene in the whole show.
This is about to go from being the Calm Mind podcast to the bawling our eyes out.
There's a lot of shows that I've cried to. Like I literally had I made on Twitter. It used to be my pinned post. I wish it still was, and I may pin it again. I made a whole thread of pieces of music that made me cry. And 70% of them are attached to scenes from shows that I've watched. Let me see if I can pull up just some of them. It might as well. It really is appropriate for Mesprit, honestly.
Did you get a chance to listen, while you're pulling that up, did you get a chance to listen to the ODST tracks at all? The Halo ODST tracks?
Yes, I did, actually. I listened.
What do you think?
Very good. Not a lot of, like, melody. I mean, it's still really, really good music. So it's something that would make me cry because there's no like melody for me. Usually that's what makes me cry. But like no, it's perfect like background music for like when I was working while I was listening to it.
Cool.
And it's definitely like, notable. Like I've never heard like a first person. I've never listened to a first person shooter soundtrack, and now I'm open to that because I realized that the music can be different than I guess the perceived genre. I thought it would just be like.
Yeah. No, like, but I know that game.
I know that game. So I mean, I'll try to find ones that you have like media that you consume. But for example, like one that comes to mind is like a piece of track and scene that I always cry to whenever I rewatch it is from My Hero Academia, where we finally see the backstory of the villain, and it's literally the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right. And
the music they play is the most unique track that I'll send it to you one day, and it's like it's backwards, like they it's like violins and like strings, but like they play them backwards, like they reversed it, and it makes this cool effect as if like the world is crumbling, like the mind of this character is crumbling. It's so cool. Obviously, Remember Me from. Have you watched Coco?
Yeah.
So I cried during Remember Me, like the final like. Was it the final song or like the climax of that movie?
Yeah.
That was, I don't know if I've told this story a billion times. I don't know if I told it here or not. This is going to be a problem in general. But like, I watched this film with my mother and sister right like a month or two after my grandmother passed away. So we cried up. Like both me and my mom teared up during that. And like we looked at each other and we knew why we were crying. And that's the first time, because I watched a bunch of movies with my mother, but I've never. Obviously, she's cried a bunch to media, but like there was never a time where we both cried to the same thing. That was a connection, dude. That was so cool. Trying to think of
kind of nice
scenes that we've both watched.
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty in Game of Thrones that make me, but not that I can actually think of specifically at this moment. But there's dozens of scenes in there. It's
crazy because people are like always like, "Oh, you cried to like a cartoon or whatever," but I barely ever cried to like a live action. It's always like animated shows because
I'm the same.
That's weird.
I'm the same, actually, yeah. I get that.
Leaves from the Vine. I've teared up.
Obviously.
But again, I didn't tear up when I first watched it, or like the first like 17 times I saw that scene. But then when I'm watching people react to it, that's when I teared up.
Huh.
I have to, I guess, watch more shows with other people.
This is going to sound really bizarre. I don't know. I tear up when I see triumphant scenes. There's like, there's moments where characters will in Captain America the Winter Soldier, not to make this whole thing a Marvel podcast, but there's a scene where Captain America is infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D., who have actually been taken over by Hydra, and he puts out this message on the intercom, and he's like, listen everyone, just so you know that they are working among you, they might be the person sat next to you, and the price of freedom is high, but it's one that I'm willing to pay, and if I'm the only one, so be it, but I'm willing to bet I'm not. So, good luck. And they're going to go stop the villains, right? And the everyday worker, the bad guy, comes along, points his gun at his head and says, right, I need you to do this now. And the guy sort of stutters and you can see the fear in his eyes. And then he goes, I'm not going to do that. Captain's orders. I cry like every time. I think it's the coolest, like most heroic, incredible thing.
And again, this is in a superhero movie, and like there's a superhero plot going on, and it's like very like convoluted. But it's like these moments of humanity. These are things that anybody can like grapple with, just like not knowing whether your decision is the right one. But and I mean, deep in your heart that what you're doing is right, but it's literally it could end your life. Like Captain America: Winter Soldier is one of my favorite films. But what's making me like almost tear up, at least in my mind, is not again a scene, but the music. It's one of the most memorable tracks in a Marvel movie for me. Is when he's falling, like he jumps out of the elevator, like he breaks the glass and jumps and falls down into like the lobby. And like the music during that point, it's like
I know, villains. I can hear it.
Exactly. I can hear it. Cool
You're saying exactly what you're talking about.
That's a good soundtrack when even a person who's not like always listening to the music can remember it. That's like that was emotional. That music for me. Maybe I'll play it in the background. Hopefully it's not. It's definitely copyrighted. I'll play like a second for it. It's like.
Yeah, I know the one. I know the one. That's it. You just got copyright strikes for that. So this topic was a side tangent, actually, of me asking you if you've had a time recently when you sort of were overcome with emotion. And we were talking about scenes, and then I sort of hijacked it. I can't remember what it was. But is there a time recently that you've, aside from like media induced, that you've either been overjoyous or over sad? Are you saying you're kind of numb generally? What's funny about that?
It's funny when someone else says that I'm numb.
You said it. I'm just repeating. But you're
it's
numb.
sad when I say it. When someone else says it, it's funny. That's the problem. Is I just don't. I'm not experiencing life to the fullest, I guess, and it's just I'm not doing a lot of things, and that's a thing that I'm trying to fix nowadays. Last time I cried. I guess the last time I like actually cried for like a sad actual problem was I had like a fight with my siblings. But I think I do cry when I get like I'll start like having that like scratchy voice, and like you can feel the crying coming when you're like really really arguing emotionally with your brother or something like that.
Oh yeah. I'll admit, not recently. I actually, when it comes to an argument I'm prepared for, I get quite numb, actually. I get very, like, matter of fact, and I can almost sound like I'm a robot who doesn't care, which is quite bizarre.
Really?
But if it's an argument, if it's something that I'm fragile about, that I didn't know, we're talking about this today.
Yeah, exactly.
And it like comes out of nowhere. You can feel it. It comes right up to the throat, and you can feel it up here. And it's
the worst.
Oh, and the words are just stuck, and you're kind of... You realize that you have to go through this.
Oh wait, I get angry a lot. If that we're only thinking about like sad and like happy, but like
happy, yeah.
I'm always angry. Like last time I was
that's
angry.
That's your secret. You're always angry. That's why you're True Green. Oh! That's why you're True Green 7.
Yeah, it's always like technology though. It's always like, my computer is not starting. It's not turning on, or like the program crashed exactly. When I didn't save for some reason.
We're the same person, Ron. I do this.
It makes sense actually, for YouTubers.
There was something so when we first recorded this podcast, that you know what I'm going to say. There was the demo episode, right? And
that was the first episode. We did a demo episode. We did a pilot episode just to test things out, and then we did a first episode.
And that first episode is lost to you, the audience, as it stands, because I stopped recording about 2 minutes in, and then we got to the end, and it was a brilliant show. And what's amazing is, obviously, we've known each other for years, and our dialogue has been only ever, like, productive and positive and happy. I think it was the first time I saw actual anguish in you, and I felt awful. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing I can do to remedy this situation right now. It just didn't record. That's it. This is an awful situation. And I felt dreadful because I could feel the upset on you.
I'm glad you were able to witness me in a different light than you usually do. That's just always like strengthens the relationship.
And it was closer for it, right?
Yeah, and it's cool that happened right as we started the podcast, so now we're closer. And
now we turn it into content, so it's all fine.
If you guys want to see it, we may recreate the last episode.
Yeah.
I didn't scream. Like, usually when I'm screaming...
He was awful, everyone. He was awful. He threw everything around. He swore he'd cancel me.
If you were in person, I would just punch you in the face.
That was it. That was the end.
But, like, I scream more at technology than I did at a literal, like, actual terrible thing that happened to me. Like, the podcast being lost.
I just want to be clear for those of you listening, Ron didn't go Hulk mode and destroy everything. You were just clearly visibly sad. And I get it as well, because I was also like...
I think what made me more angry about you losing the recording was more that, to me, it was always just obvious to constantly be looking at the audio, to make sure it's recording. I've been doing that since the beginning of my career. So... But no, it's all good. The podcast's happening very well. I'm glad. Like this, I think the first episode that we recorded officially was better than the first episode that was lost.
I think they keep getting better.
Me too.
We're recording this right now, and I'm like, this is a good episode of the podcast. Like, I feel like this is like just getting better and better. And I don't know if people have noticed. Speaking, this is like perfect segue because you've got new technology, and it's hopefully making the podcast even better. If anyone's been listening,
yeah, I didn't want to say it in the beginning because then they'd be judging, like they'd be trying to listen for like the inconsistencies, the entire podcast, and then that may make it less enjoyable. But yeah, I finally got the mic that Toby and literally everybody has. The settings may be different. I don't know. We're gonna see if we're gonna try to reconfigure my settings to make it like the exact same settings as Toby's. That way, it really sounds like we're in the same room, but it definitely sounds closer.
We definitely want it to sound because we've got slightly different qualities of voice. So I don't know a lot about that. I actually feel like I'll be following your guidance, even though I've had the mic for longer. I think I'll be following yours on like how we balance this correctly so that it sounds perfect. It's
crazy because you sound perfect to me when I'm listening to you right now, but then when you bring in the audio to the program, it sounds completely different. Like I have to add a lot of processing, even though right now you sound crystal clear. You sound like you're just like talking directly to my ears, my ear holes.
Interesting. You know, when we weren't in the same room, was when we were in high school.
Hey, let's talk about our high school life, Toby.
Whoa, okay, yeah, I like that. That's a great on-the-fly topic to choose.
So the last few episodes, we've been talking about our upbringing. A few episodes ago, we talked about our parents. Then last episode, we talked about our siblings and our friends. And now we're going to finally just finish this conversation off with our high school life. Just our teenage life, how that functioned. Because, again... mine was definitely different than Toby's and definitely different than a lot of you guys too. So, I mean,
I want to hear about yours first. There's like a romanticized view, I think, in England of what like the American high school experience is. There, you're all buzzing to go off to college, and everyone's getting kind of flirty, and everyone's kind of rebelling, and you don't have uniforms at school, so you're all self-expressioning and stuff. So like that's like what we see, and then you have the crazy house parties with a billion rooms, and everyone's got those red beer cups that we don't like. I mean, I guess we have them, but like no one would use them here. So that's like what I've got in my head.
Well, that makes no sense because we drink later than you guys do. You guys start drinking at like what, 16, 18, but like, you know what I mean. But
wait, yes, we do. Yes,
you started at 18.
Legally, yes.
But we know for us it's 21, so people aren't explicitly drinking in high school. At least not my high school. At least from my perception of like British media, like the high school kind of like comedies and shows that take place in high school in England, those are way more like raunchy than the ones in America, at least from what I've seen, like Skins.
Really?
And I've been watching,
I guess,
Sex Education. Have you ever heard of that?
Sex Education is a nonsense take.
Yeah.
That is an American high school as we see them. We see that and we're like, that's an American high school. And
That's
like even
hilarious.
the house, it's like, that's an American house.
I mean,
because
what?
that's like, it's the big criticism in the UK. The big criticism in the UK is that like, that is the most inaccurate depiction of what a UK school is. It just looks like it's been written by someone who's familiar with American writing.
Well, it's like the Euphoria. It's like Euphoria for like for Britain. Like Euphoria, the show Euphoria. Do you know about Euphoria?
I know about it. I haven't
you know
seen
about it. It's like that. Apparently, is like the craziest high school in the entire world. Everybody does crazy things. And it literally, that's not a good depiction of American high school. It's not.
Skins. I give you, like, Skins is probably a pretty good view of what, not high school, but like what college is like here.
Which is high school for us, technically.
I guess. Oh, well, true. But I think the difference is that Skins is, like, it's not my experience. It's more like it's an experience of people who are maybe having slightly more rough lives than I am, for lack of a better word.
It's funny because I'd say Skins, again, I haven't watched much Skins, but I'd say the closest to that, at least in North America, is Degrassi.
Okay.
And that takes place in Canada, but like that's also like a high school where it's not like as crazy as Sex Education or Euphoria, but again, it's just it's an exaggerated depiction. I think every high school, whether it be in any country, is just normal, like unless they're in a specific area. But like the average high school is just people doing normal things, and if they're doing crazy things, it's behind closed doors. It's not nobody knows that it's happening unless. Oh, that's actually funny. Okay, the last 2 years of high school is technically around the same thing as the first 2 years, except for you're applying for colleges. You're a lot of seniors, they'll have less classes than juniors, for example. They'll also obviously take school less seriously because they by like the first few months you're already accepted to your college, so you already know where you're going. You know what kind of classes not to really take seriously. But that's, I'd say, the most common thing. Like, not the structure of the school, because again, the structure of like the classes could be different. But every high schooler is every like junior and senior is worrying about college and stuff. That's the most common. So I went to a private Jewish school, so even then, half of the classes were Judaic studies.
Whoa. Okay.
So we would go there it would literally be from 8 to 5. The first hour is like prayers and breakfast. Throughout the day, it's like literally like you go to English, then you go to Hebrew class, then you go to math, but then you go to Tanakh class, which is like the Bible. You go. It's like.
So wait, you had breakfast at school?
Well, almost everybody commuted. Not almost everybody. Like 60% of students commuted from, like, let's say I commuted, for example, an hour. So I was on the bus like 6:30 sometimes. So I woke up like, let's say 6. I was on the bus like 6:30. Then like for another half an hour, you're collecting all the other students, and then you're driving to school. You get there at 8 o'clock. And by the way, you're sleeping on the bus. Everybody brings their own pillow. You're sleeping for another hour.
Wait, so when you say collecting the other students, you mean that in the literal, like, again, like this is not something we do here in the UK that I know of, like a bus. Driving to students' houses to pick up the students?
Yeah, a school bus.
I mean, sure, but that you go to a bus stop and they pick you up from the bus stop.
Well, this is a private school, so it's like, and also they're picking you up at like in the wee hours of the morning. They're not going to make you also like come to a specific bus stop.
Right. Okay.
So the other students, they in their buses, like the ones that lived really near the school, they do have bus stops. Because they literally live like 10 minutes away from the school, and they get to they don't have to wake up at 6. They get to wake up at 7. So half of the students are way more tired than the other students that have like a disadvantage, but whatever. So yeah, you just come to school, you pray for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, then you have another like 20 minutes for breakfast because you're hungry. You've been awake since 6. You always have like a lot of people do have breakfast at home, but that was like 2 hours ago. Before,
yeah, sure.
And you want to eat again, and then you just have school like nobody, everybody else. But it ends at 5. So like all the classes are the same classes except add on all the Jewish stuff, and then you leave at 5.
So okay, so I mean obviously that's not necessarily a universal American experience, but for your experience you have private school, and with that comes all these Judaic, am I saying that right? Judaic studies. So okay, how do you, that's interesting to me, like, because I did not go to any kind of religious school, and while there were religious motifs in the early days, certainly like by the time I was in high school, like that was not a thing that we had to even think about, or like, so that's going to be a vast difference in our experiences. I wondered I guess what do you think about that? The fact that you spent, potentially hours and hours and hours that could have been spent on another subject, or are you like, no, I'm really glad that we learnt all of this stuff, I'm interested.
All right, so let me finish off the day. 5 o'clock, you leave school, you're home 6:30 basically. So you're literally outside of home for 12 hours. That's too much. That's not necessary.
Yes.
The time wise, that's always a good thing I'm going to regret. The actual losing a lot of time. Like we would do homework on the bus, and like so by the time you get home, you don't have that much homework. But then if you have a test, you have to study. You don't have time to do anything during the weekday. I have only during senior year was I able to have enough time to maybe watch a movie after school. I did not have ever enough time to watch a movie after school. Or hang out after school. Or again, only until senior year was I like hanging out with my friends after school, and that was usually because I would go to the houses of people who lived like 10 minutes away, and then we would have time to play video games and get dinner and stuff. But all right, so you're asking if I regret or what's my opinion on the whole situation. It's very like bittersweet, where it's like, there's the pros and cons of everything. So for example, because of the size of the school, because of like just the format of the school, you're way closer with the people.
Sure.
You're literally 12 hours with them. And there's also, because it's like a school with like a shared identity, there's a lot of events, a lot of like extracurriculars, or just like when the assemblies and stuff like that. Whether based around like, let's say a holiday or like a seminar or like just like a celebration, or you guys have this shared identity, so it's like it's very easy to cooperate.
Yeah, sure.
There wasn't any bullying, there wasn't anybody ostracized. I do regret some of the classes, and I regret, it's not like it was my choice or anything, but like some of the classes are not utilized in my adulthood. Like the lessons in terms of how to study for those stuff, like it is productive to learn how to, let's say, decipher an ancient text. That's basically half of the Judaic studies is literally reading from 1,000-year-old texts, like, and knowing how to do that. Learning a second, it's also good to know a different language.
Another skill.
I mean, I knew Hebrew from just my parents, so I was also just one of the best at speaking Hebrew in class too, and I would always do well in Hebrew class. But it's just it's always good to have a different mentality, because it really is a different perspective and different way of thinking when you know a different language. Although Hebrew is it's a Semitic language, it's also like it's a phonetic language, so it's kind of similar to English. It really, in terms of like the way things are read, at least, like the reading is literally phonetically just like English. While for example Japanese and Chinese, that's characters. It's a completely different way of thinking. So here's another bittersweet thing: is like I regret I wasted a lot of time. I could have, let's say, come home way earlier, let's say 2-3 o'clock, like any normal person, and then spend time, let's say, focusing on my channel or focusing on a hobby and stuff like that. But on the other hand, I focused on my hobbies in school with other kids. I was, had a video club. I did a lot of extracurriculars, and I had a lot of experiences that, like, for example, my brother, he went to public high school, and he had a fantastic time, but he didn't do any extracurriculars. So I'm scared that, like, let's say I did go to public school, I would not have joined all these clubs, and let's say I wouldn't have even become proficient in making videos and then doing this, making this channel. Or like, let's say if I would have started my channel a bit earlier when I was less skilled, the channel wouldn't have been successful, maybe because I would have given up after 2 years of like the channel not doing well because the videos don't look good or something like that. I started at a really good point in my skill level. So I don't regret that, and I don't regret the experiences. The experiences themselves were all positive. But it was also it's just literally just the time. The time is what I regret. It really is unnecessary for kids to have 12 hours of school.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, here certainly you're talking about sort of like 8-9 in the morning through till 3 p.m. It's 3 o'clock. You're going home. Like you go home, you have dinner around 4 or 5, and then get to bed sort of like. At that age, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, you get to bed so that you can get up as 6, 7, get a slow start going. We had I remember we had 6 periods every day. Each period is about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and you're talking maths, English, science, And then certainly at that age, like there's the other topics, geography, history, the religious studies, that kind of thing. But when you hit year 9, which is us turning about 14, 15, you get to do your choices, which is where you go, okay, I have to do maths, English, science, but I do not want to do religious studies, geography, history, but I want to do drama or cooking or whatever. And you pick different classes to focus in on. And I just focused on drama. And what I found is that, like, for me, like, I don't think school, there are, I watch a lot of people, a lot of parents who talk about like homeschooling or alternative schooling situations to traditional schooling. And I actually think while the traditional schooling system benefits a lot of people, it benefits a lot of people to come out the sort of same way. And in a society where everyone coming out the same way is coming out the same way, it's at your advantage to be in the minority who can think differently and who can see the system and maneuver around it. And I actually think I would have been one of those that would have benefited from schooling that was not traditional, and very much my parents helped mold that to me as much as possible. Mum fought quite fiercely for me to get a statement of educational needs, so I spent a lot of time in learning support. I spent a lot of time out of class, and the only thing I actually like properly regret is that I didn't have the confidence at that age to just leave maths class, because I am sorry, and I say it as a 28-year-old adult, there was no need for me to learn algebra. There was no need for me to learn about triangles and shapes and all these different things, and the direct angles and different kinds of angles and stuff. For me specifically, that was wasted time, and I say that with 1,000% confidence. He did need maths because he said 1,000%, and that's not a real. You can't have 1,000, but but like 100%. It's just unnecessary. I cannot wrap my head around it. The fact that we went to school and we didn't learn about taxes, and that we didn't learn about compound interest, and that we didn't learn about like saving money in that way for maths, boggles my mind to my core. I just don't understand how that's not a thing, because financial independence, the whole point of that is you're supposed to start young and everyone would benefit from it. But I don't know. I was publicly schooled, so again, very different experience.
I mean, it's the same. It feels like it's the same in America too, where everybody's always lamenting the fact that we weren't taught taxes and finances in school. Although my brother, he did go to public school, and he was in finance class, so he knows more about, like, at least at a younger age, he knew more about stocks and finances and stuff. So there was an option, at least for him. There wasn't. I went to private school, and that was an option. That was not an option there. But I think I'm not arguing that your basic addition, multiplication, all that stuff. Of course, that's necessary. Of course, knowing the difference between a triangle and a hexagon is obviously like fine fundamental knowledge. But by the time you're 14, 15, you're learning about like math stuff that I just think is so. But you don't know what kind of career you're going to go into at that age, so you may still need it. I'd say maybe 17, 16, then I'd say probably not. You know what you're like. At least a lot of people know whether or not they're going to be in a field like engineering or stuff like that. They need that
I would argue that there's more people would benefit from learning about, like I say, like taxes and that, versus like, the time wasted on finding out what X was. It just not been necessary ever. And I literally, you have a choice for exams here in the UK, where if you think that you're not going to get above it, so it's graded A, B, C, D, E, and F is a fail, right? Yeah. So an A and A star is the best.
Oh, you guys have E? That's crazy.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I didn't get an E in anything, but what I found is my relationship to learning was that for all of the classes that I didn't care about, you can take a paper where the max grade you can get is a C. You can't get anything above it, but it's a substantially easier paper. And I was like, fine, give me that. And then I got my C's, and that was fine. I didn't care for any more. You don't need any more than that to go to university or whatever. Sure. And I put the majority of my energy into drama, into getting high grades in that, to getting into my IT course, getting high grades in that. And I got like some of the best grades in the class for both of those subjects. And like, I was like, if you took my grades from those classes and applied them to everything else, you'd think I'm an A-star student. But for maths, English, and science, I was like, I will do the bare minimum to pass, please. And it was like an active choice. Like, I do not want to do more than is necessary, because it would seem to be that the goal of school is to get to college. The goal of college is to get to university, and the goal of university is to get a job. And actually that continued through with college, where I actually excelled quite well at college. But like once it was clear I was going to university, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna put in. I mean, I enjoyed the work, so I did put in extra effort, but like I wouldn't have felt the stress. And then when we were in university, the big mistake that I saw people making, I've got so many friends who did the same course at me at university. They worked so hard in their last year. They got their A-star top grade first degree from in film production. I got a 2-1. I submitted the necessary work, and I got on and I made my YouTube channel. And the result is all of my friends who got there first, who worked super hard, they didn't have a plan for after, and they're just like struggling to make rent, to pay the bills, to live where they want to live. And it's like, because unfortunately the education system, I think, sets you up to excel in a world specifically where there is a boss who is going to tell you you've done a good job and that you're hitting your targets.
Which is valid, because that's most jobs.
Valid for a lot of jobs, but in the creative industry, I'm like, well, none of this matters. My show reel's what matters. So
it's the same thing with me. I mean, maybe we should have set aside a time to talk about university and college. Maybe a different time. But for me in my university, because I was just always so good at learning and not learning, that too. But like I was good at school. I was good at doing school because after 12 years of school, I now know how to school. But I focused too much on the grades in university even though I was in a creative field, I was in a creative major, and all the other people, they were doing the bare minimum, at least to pass and stuff like that, while actually working on their career, like interning and like doing things. That's actually what the teachers were encouraging. They're like, just, you don't need to get A's, get like B's, but actually work on like your reel and stuff like that. And that's what they were doing, but I wasn't.
I always say, like, I got my my 2-1 degree from uni and my silver play button at around the same time, and I'm like, which do you think represents? It was 2016.
Yeah, but what year of uni?
That's final year.
Final year,
Final year, so third year. So I'm
which is the same time, I think, as me.
1921. I got these things at the same time, and I was just saying to, like, my mum was like, do you want to put your degree up in like a frame and have it on the wall? I was like, no, I don't care about my degree. I was like, but my silver play button, that's the representation of the work that I've actually done. And I think that's like a much more important thing, and like having a show reel. But I always say my favorite time was college, which was ages 16 to 18. And at that point, maths, English, science, that's all done. It was just drama all the time. And we had a sort of, I think, 15-hour work week where it was just kind of like, some days we didn't have college, other days we did have college. Sometimes it would be like in the morning, sometimes it would be in the evening, and it's a little all over the place. But when you do drama, you put in a lot more hours, because the rehearsals are expected to be done outside of the class time. And so everyone goes, okay, well, we might as well all come in at like 9 a.m. tomorrow, even though class doesn't start till 2, and just start rehearsing and get on with it if the space is free. So you just kind of do a lot of that, and you do a lot of extra time. And like a weekend just isn't a real thing. You just kind of like, sometimes you're off on a Tuesday, sometimes you're off on a Saturday. It's whatever.
Same thing. But
I
love
love that,
because like, again,
I love that.
My school, my university, my homework was like a full-time job. It was literally 30 to 40 hours of homework.
It sounds stressful.
It was the most stressful major at my school, the computer art major, which is annoying because you get the same degree as, let's say, a fine art major. You get a fine arts degree. You get the same degree as, like, let's say, an illustration major. Well, I mean, they obviously do work, but their homework is definitely less than my homework. And like the pressure is way more way less because like for us, we had to make a short film in order to graduate. You have to make an animated short film to graduate. If you literally mess up on one thing in the last week, that's it. Sucks for you. And you have to pay another $20,000 for another year. Also, yeah, my school, it's an art school, super expensive. Only could have paid for it because I had a job, because I had YouTube. Sure. That's the only way I paid for it. I would have been still paying off this school for another 20 years if I didn't have YouTube. So I'm very thankful for that, actually. But I cannot recommend going to art school. It really is not worth the money. It's worth like the experiences and stuff, but the money. That is my alarm to upload. My alarm to upload is Route 120.
Hey, nice.
we'll have a different conversation on that. I don't want to rush that conversation.
I've got opinions on that, and that is like a whole other topic for maybe even next week or another podcast or whatever, a future week.
Whether university, at least for creative stuff, is worth it.
I have opinions, but yeah, no, we'll leave that.
What's funny, so to finish off, you did ask about like regrets or just my opinion on high school. One thing that I do actually regret is I did take it too seriously, as in like I studied a lot, and I did I tried to actually be in the classes that were at least the highest I could be, because my school, what was cool about it is that every single class you could be in a different like track. You can be in honors like math, but like the lowest level English or whatever, right? Which was really crazy because you didn't know who was who was the smart kid, because the smart kid could be amazing at like science and stuff and being like the AP US history or whatever. You could be in honors science, but like be at like the lowest level Hebrew. It's a good way of not judging people based on their intelligence or the class that they're in. Yeah. But also, I wish I didn't like take honors for everything. You know what I'm saying? By senior year, after I got accepted, I moved down a few. I was like, okay, I don't need to be in honors one of the Judaic studies. Like for some of the Judaic studies, I'm like, I do not need to be in honors for this, even though I could do it. It's not worth it. And I was able to really relax the last year, but I wish I did that earlier. And then also just the last regret is just, again, it's not a regret because that's literally how it is in a private school. It's usually based on an identity, like whether it's a Catholic school or a Jewish school or I don't know. The fact is that it's way less perspectives. You're basically indoctrinated to one perspective. Whether or not that perspective is good, that's up to you to decide. After graduating, that's when I realized, oh wait, I was actually indoctrinated. Again, whether or not I was fine with that indoctrination, that's a separate conversation. But it isn't always good to be indoctrinated.
That is a conversation I'd love to have with you. We are coming up with the future podcast ideas for sure.
100%. Let me write some of these down. But meanwhile, Toby,
these are good stuff.
Send them out. Send us out.
Is this with the end of the podcast? So famously, we've got this way that we end the podcast, which is we don't know how.
Bye.